Leafs Nation. It was 4-1, baby. And they came all the way back versus the Tampa Bay Lightning last night to win it in overtime. The reverse collapse, the anti-Leaf win. And they get her done to win 2 in overtime in Tampa. Welcome in Leafs Lunch with Julie Tocheri and Mike Distefano. Darren Dreger will join us in about 20 minutes. Chris Versteeg, and Cheryl Pounder a little bit later in the show. But holy moly, AB! The Leafs up 3-1 on the reigning, well, they're not reigning champions anymore, but the guys that went to the Stanley Cup the past 3 years, the Leafs got them at 3-1 right now, coming home to Toronto on Thursday.
They got him, and just like Austin Matthews said, which I like, job's not done. The hardest one to win is the fourth one because they've had ample opportunity to win that fourth game and have not been able to do so. They've gone 10 straight chances to win a fourth game in a series and have not been able to bury the team, and this is an opportunity for them. They'll have 3 cracks at it, but try and get this thing wrapped up as quick as possible because at some point you just know that, we think that Andrei Vasilevsky is gonna come alive. I mean, what that guy, it's so bizarre. The low level of goaltending that he's been giving us is kind of like we're just not expecting it. Like I don't even know what to say. The fact that the Leafs have 19 goals through 4 games, but one thing is for certain: Austin Matthews arrived in this series.
Welcome to the party, 34.
Austin Matthews finally had that game where he said, hop on my back, boys. We're not losing this one. And had that kind of playoff-defining moments that we've kind of been waiting for, right? We came into the series and we spoke about this ahead of game 1. I remember we were sitting up in the gondola doing Leafs lunch in the press room and thinking to ourselves, Austin Matthews has yet to have that, solid playoff performance that McDavid's had. That Draisaitl's had, Makar, McKinnon. He's in that mix of those best players, but he had yet to have that series-defining, playoff-defining moment. I think last night was just that for Austin Matthews.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a part of the story if they pull this thing off, AB. I feel really comfortable calling that Austin Matthews' most important game as a Leaf, the most impactful game as a Leaf, because to your point, we've all been kind of waiting. He belongs in that echelon, or we believe he does, with Connor McDavid, with Nate McKinnon, with Cale Makar, with that echelon of player. But he didn't have the same with Connor McDavid, who had that great deep run last year with the Edmonton Oilers. He didn't have that on his resume. And you know what? He still doesn't. Not yet, at least. But that win will definitely be a part of a signature playoff performance package if they pull this off.
I mean, yeah, I think pulling it off is definitely, I guess, a qualifier when it comes to that because there is still one more to go, right?
Job's not done, and I love that he said that. He looks like a gamer right now. He's
right?
dialed in. He's not smiling in interviews. He's not smiling in post games.
Well, they've been there before.
He didn't even smile after he got those couple goals. Like he's in game mode right now. I don't know if I've seen this kind of kill mode from the Leafs yet. I didn't say killer instinct because there's no way of saying that until they bag game 4.
So I'll say
we've
this.
seen shades of it for sure.
I'll say this, Julia. I will say this. There's a little checklist that I think the Maple Leafs are kind of checking off game by game, right?
I love this.
Here. And this is kind of the exercising the playoff demons checklist, okay? So for me, here's what I have, and here's what they've checked off so far, okay? The goaltender steals a game that they deserve to lose. And when you look at it, this checklist is very reminiscent because they've been on the other side of all of these things, and now they're finally the team that's doing it, right? So game 3, Samsonov went into Tampa Bay, stole that game. He was unbelievable, right? And they ended up winning that game, and he was the sole reason why, and they come away with the victory. Check. Leafs actually gaining some real respect from John Cooper post-game. This guy has done everything to not credit the Leafs in the last 2 years come playoff round until afterwards, right? Respect in the handshake line, but where was the respect post-game? Well, we finally got that respect post-game last night. I want to hear it because I can't believe that these words came out of John Cooper's mouth.
You put 4 on the board. That should be a win. And we didn't. So in the end, you got to defend and you got to keep the puck out of your net. And we didn't do it enough. And again, credit to the Leafs.
Credit to the Leafs. He's never given credit to the Leafs. He just hasn't done that over the course of the last couple of years. So finally getting that respect, not in the handshake line, but actual performances in which the Maple Leafs deserve it. Not for the 50 minutes that they played prior to that final 10, but to stick with it and to finally get it done and put pucks past Vasilevsky and win in overtime.
Quick note on that. on that quote,
Yeah.
just while it's fresh in our minds. Was that a shot at Vasilevsky in this play thus far?
I don't think so.
No?
It'd be stupid for him to take shots at Vasilevsky.
Yeah, I don't
Like
think it was
I
either.
don't think so.
I'm asking because there was a lot made of it online, him saying that.
I think it's the whole team. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, here's the thing: the first 50 minutes of that hockey game, they're playing extremely stingy defense. Like Toronto had a really tough time getting it through the neutral zone and
Just
establishing.
entering the zone, like you can
Yeah,
see the difference in like if you look online at the stats, they were not entering the zone cleanly the first two periods.
No,
And and we'll talk about this with Cheryl or with a former player because I really want to understand how that happens more because everything changes for the Leafs, especially versus this Tampa team when they're able to enter cleanly at the blue line in the
100%.
zone. And it's I can't decide if that changed when the Leafs turned it on or when Tampa kind of took their foot off the gas with their forecheck at the blue line because that seemed to be the difference in the first period, but I'm sure it's a little bit of both. It is definitely a major factor, though, when they enter that zone clean. Everything is different about the Leafs when Austin or Mitch has the swagger to carry it in the zone.
I think a big part of it, like you look at the way things kind of changed. I think you look at they're opportunistic. Like they waited until they had a chance to maybe catch, Tampa Bay sleeping, right? Like they played great throughout the first 50 minutes. And then you look at the 4-2 goal in particular, and TJ Brody has an opportunity to either regroup and everybody can kind of come back and reset. But instead, he notices, okay, I can catch him sleeping here, zips the puck up to Nylander, and all of a sudden, they got an odd man rush, 3-on-2 rush chance. The puck ends up on the stick of Austin Matthews, and it's 3-2, right? They did not have many odd man rushes last night. They did not get to break into the zone with that much speed and with that much space last night.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what kickstarted everything, was that 4-2 goal. It gave them belief, like, oh, maybe we can do this here, right? And they finally got it done.
It's a pretty one, too, eh?
Oh, it was a great shot.
And to
great
that
shot.
point in the game, like, Austin had been not bad, but quiet. Mitch had been probably a little bit closer to the bad side. And William Nylander was, like,
Terrible.
in the streets,
Honestly,
plastered to the bench. We'll go through and read because we gave you all the opportunity to call yourselves out. Make sure to tune in to chime into this. You can text us 105050 or tweet us at Leafs Lunch 1050. We asked if there's anything you'd like a mulligan on, anything you'd like to take back that you said in the first or second or first 10 minutes of the third period last night. Some good responses there already.
but to go back to my checklist, all this is kind
Right.
of encompassing,
Yeah.
right? And exercising those playoff demons, like just winning games that they're not supposed to. They never really won those games that they weren't supposed to, right? Like that just has not really happened in the past. Winning games in overtime has been a big Achilles heel for this team the last few seasons. Last year, Game 6, they were unable to close and finish out that game in Tampa Bay. Think back to Game 6 also in Montreal the season prior, right? Unable to close, up 3-2, a chance to put them away, and they play phenomenally in that overtime. I think the shots were 13-1 in that OT in Game 6 against Montreal, but that one shot found a way through the back of the net, and Montreal able to force Game 7, and we know what happened there.
That's backbreaking. So that,
It is.
Remember how backbreaking that felt for the Leafs when they were better, but they were not winning those games in Montreal? They were up 3-1, and every time they had another crack to end it, it just got more, it felt more and more and more like a mountain.
Yeah.
Like, the other way to frame this, God, imagine how Tampa's feeling right now.
Yeah.
They have been the better team in probably 3 of these games. Imagine how defeating that feeling is.
Yeah,
You don't have to imagine because we've been there.
I test Tampa should be up 3-1, but they're not, right? This is why you play
We've
the
always
games.
been cronies.
Right? This is why you play the games, right? They're not up 3-1, and it's the Maple Leafs that are up 3-1. And it's due to a couple of come-from-behind victories on the road. Like, when have they gone out there and had statement road wins in the past, right? Like, last year, there wasn't many statement road wins. But the come-from-behind aspect of that, we really haven't seen. Game 3 was great, right? Coming back, just scored. They needed one. That's it. They needed one goal to come back. They got it from Ryan O'Reilly, and then one in overtime. They needed 3 goals, and they got it in a 6-minute and 20-second span.
It was kind of garbage
It was
time.
just boom, boom, boom. Like, that game was over. I mean, I don't know about you, but 10 minutes left in that game, I'm like, all right, that's over. That's it.
The second goal, I was like, congrats on the moral victory, boys. Like, nice
For
one.
me,
Looked
it was
pretty.
the Killorn goal. When Killorn ringed it, posted it, and made it 4-1 at the end of the second period. There was like a minute 3 left. I was like, that's it. That's another demoralizing goal at the end of a period where they just keep extending that lead. Like, that's it. Toronto, Tampa Bay does not lose when they take leads into the second period. All season long, they were 28-1-2 when leading after the second period. That's now back-to-back games. Toronto's been able to mount a comeback and get the victory in overtime. And a 3-goal comeback, that just doesn't happen. Like
Yeah.
what's the stat here? That was
First
like the
time
first
Tampa
time.
Bay has ever lost a playoff game where they held a 3-goal lead in the third period.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
Wowie, wowie, wow.
So-
So everybody's in uncharted territory right now. You and I, we're in uncharted territory right now.
Yeah.
The Leafs, also not in uncharted territory because they've been up 3-1 in a series before. Back versus Montreal, the team looked a lot different, but the core characters were kind of the same. Not kind of the same, exactly the same. And Tampa's also in a very uncomfortable situation. The
Yeah.
only time they've been in this situation before is when they got swept by Columbus. Like, this is very uncharted territory for everyone involved right now.
Yep. Yeah. So like what does that mean going forward?
I have no idea. We're
That's-
just sailing a ship off into the dark. Like, we don't know
We'll
what
see
this
what
looks like
happens.
from here.
The weird part is like just the fact that they are up 3-1, but it doesn't feel like they should be. But
Yeah.
they are. And I think that's where it's okay, this something feels different, right? Like there's so many of those this feels different moments that we've seen throughout this season. Like this is kind of what goes back to the exercising playoff demons checklist is all of these things is like, well, that's different because typically they're on the other side of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like typically they're the ones who are giving up the leads and they're the ones who are blowing 3-1 leads in the final 10 minutes of a game. Go back to 2013. We all know what happened in that
know.
collapse, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost as if everything is kind of in reverse and the world has kind of been flipped upside down a little bit. And to go back to the checklist, I think, to go back to the 2013 collapse, it was 4-1, meant something so bad
Yeah.
prior to 9:30 last night. And then 9:30 rolled around, and they actually came back and won that game. It was 4-1 Tampa, and they came back, and they tied the game, took it to OT, and won it. It was 4-1, has a different meaning today than it did yesterday.
You're so right. You're so right. And, like, I saw Bruins fans this morning. I saw Bruins fans this morning coming out of the woodwork because they're just vibing so hard after just to remind Leafs fans, like, hey, it was an elimination game. It's
Now,
not
I agree
fully
with
on.
that. I agree
get
with
it.
that. It doesn't have the same meaning. I'll say
Isn't
that.
it funny that Bruins fans come out of the
definitely doesn't.
woodwork just to remind Leaf fans of that? Like, okay, we get it. However, it is a reverse script, and I like the omen that
It's just
potentially
checking off.
infers.
It's checking off things off this exercising playoff demons checklist, right? It was 4-1 has haunted this team forever. And this wasn't even the same iteration. Like that was team past. That was Nazem, JVR, Bozak. Like that was that team. This wasn't even the Mitch and Austin team. But it's legitimately been 9 years since then, 10 years since then, and it still haunts Leafs Nation. Well, last night it was their turn to flip the script. It was 4-1 Tampa, and they came back and they got that. So
Yeah.
check off the list. There's one more thing that they need to check off this list. And it's the most important thing that they need to check off this list. Can they show that they actually have the killer instinct? I think it's been great the last couple of games that they've come back and they've gotten they've tied the game, took it to overtime, and they've put them away. But can they really put them away? Like we said, 10 straight opportunities to advance into the second round, and they've failed to do so.
Yeah.
They've failed to do so. Can they finally put them away and close the series? That will be the final check off the playoff demons checklist. Can they show that they have that killer instinct and get it done?
And it remains to be seen, AB. And that's
Find
what we'll
out
have to
Thursday.
marinate on for the next couple of days until Thursday when they come back home for Game 5 with their first opportunity to close the series for the first time in 20 years, AB, since 2004.
Yeah, it's honestly weird that the Leafs are in this.
It's
in
weird,
this
okay?
situation.
Can we address that? Like, we're doing this Bar Down playoff vlog, so we're filming a lot of our days.
Yeah.
I was at the Square last night. Everyone was hyped there. The wild range of emotions was very evident. And you know what? The sun kind of came out for the folks in Maple Leaf Square, too. It was such a garbaggio day yesterday, and then it ended up actually being pretty warm down there. But there is definitely a sense of, like, everyone was elated when they got the goal to tie it and got the goal to win it, of course. But didn't you also sense, like, a bit of, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't even know how to act in this scenario because the Leafs have never really been here before. We're also used to being kind of on the
other
reverse
side.
of it.
Yeah.
Like, Joe Bowen's call kind of said it all to me. Like, I don't know how they did that. There
Yeah.
is genuinely a sense of excitement, but a sense of
Well, it's-
uneasiness and maybe a bit of confusion
Well,
in the Leafs Nation right
it's
now.
just because like they played not that they didn't play well through the first 50 minutes of that game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, they just were not a good team. They really struggled to break into the zone, and they had allowed 4 goals against through the first couple of periods. They were not the better team. They were severely outplayed by Tampa Bay. But then the final 10 minutes of the game, they flipped some sort of switch that we did not know was in them.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen it, but they flipped the switch, and Austin Matthews in particular flips that switch and gets it going, scores once, scores twice. Next thing you know, Morgan Riley's putting one in from the point. And this
Shiner.
thing's going to
It's the
overtime.
Shiner. How tough does Morgan Riley look right now?
He deserves all the credit in the world.
He looks like a nail. He's playing like a weapon.
Morgan Riley and Alex Kerfoot have been dogged on a lot in this market because of the seasons that they have, and I would say fairly. Like,
Yep.
I think it's been fair that they have not played up to the standard that not only we have for them, but that they have for themselves. They've talked about it themselves. It's nothing that I'm overstepping by saying that, but the way that Riley's really put it together in this last 3 games here and has taken this team to another level. The way that Alex Kerfoot came up big with that game-winning goal in overtime last night, biggest goal I would say of his career.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you gotta love it for those guys, and Leafs Nation, have a lot of apologizing today for the words that have come out about those two over the course of the last 12 months. But
Yeah.
last night they came up huge.
Two
for this
specifically
team.
maligned players, you're
Yeah.
right. Morgan Riley, longest tenured Leaf. We sang his praises yesterday, but Alex Kerfoot, too, a guy who plugs a lot of holes for this team whenever Sheldon Keefe needs a hole plugged. And you know what? He's had some playoff disappointments. He also seems to score a big goal every postseason as well. So it was nice to see him enjoy that moment. We're just missing a Justin Hall overtime winner to complete kind of the trifecta
Hey,
of
man, it was
maligned Leafs.
Justin Hall who kind of put the puck on net, and
You're
I mean,
right.
Justin Hall's shooting too.
No,
That's
it
another
wasn't
thing we
hate.
gotta
It was,
get into.
it was just more of like a trifecta
I know,
of completing the circle of maligned
I know
Leafs.
what you mean, but we do got to get to something that Derek Lalonde was talking about, former Tampa Bay coach. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and how maybe they found the book on Vasilevsky. I think it was a really interesting comment. We'll dig into that a little bit, maybe with Darren Dreger, who's going to join us on the other side. Christopher Stieg also going to join us, as well as Cheryl Pounder in the 1 o'clock hour. I'm Mike Distefano with Julia Tocheri. Listen to Leafs Lunch here on TSN 1050.